Hello, everyone, and welcome to the, we're just laughing because we are all here at the University of Montana. I would say we all are here, and I'm going to show you who is here with me today for our live class. Here we go. Here are the University of Montana Waisili team and friends. I know. So we are all here and excited to do this live session with you. So you have sent me a whole number of questions. There we go. We are getting to watch ourselves on the screen as well. We'll show you. That'll really mess everything up. Let's see if we can do it. Let's see. We're going to go this way, and there we are up there. So, so now we are watching while filming, and we'll see how we do. So thank you for joining us on our Leading Change live session, Q&A session. And you've sent me in many questions, and we'll go through those. There's about 103 of you that have registered for this class, in addition to all of you. So we've got a great showing today, and I know that everyone in this room is looking forward to seeing you all at Congress here in just a few weeks. So I'm going to go back and forth between you being able to see me as well as showing you some slides. So we're going to go into those slides here for a minute, and there we go. Welcome to the Leading Change online session. So the way this is going to work is I think you all will be able to chat with each other on YouTube, but I can't see it. Are you seeing? Hopefully this is going to, there we go. Switches over. You are going to be able to chat with each other on YouTube, but I can't see it. But maybe I can if we've got this extra screen. So we'll have to see. If you have any questions or insights, send them to us on Facebook Messenger. And you can see, you're going to send it to Deidre.Combs on Facebook.com. This will be recorded, so you can return to it anytime using this exact same link. Right. There we go. And we're going to continue on. You had a couple questions. So I ended up with about 25 questions, and I've narrowed them down to these 9. And hope to go through these 9 for you. We're going to talk first about how to lead across different cultures. That came up quite a bit. Some of you are working with foreign students that are coming to your countries to learn. Some of you are working with multicultural groups, and so I've got a couple ideas for you. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between good business and nonprofit leadership, and what are the traits of that. This I've also included here. Someone asked, what's the one thing you want us to know? And I'll come back to that. And how can we be the change that we want to be in the world? How to encourage women to support each other, to deal with difficult employees. We'll talk a little bit about social entrepreneurship, and do we really have to make money for it to actually be an entrepreneurial venture? And leading in a startup, how to survive that. Do you think I'm going to be able to get to all of this in an hour and 15 minutes? We're all concerned, but at least we'll do a little. We'll just touch on these, and I'll give you more resources, both now and after. One question was around how do you work with government and civil society and private, and then we'll talk a little bit about taking that final assessment and how to use Prezi. So to lead across cultures, I teach a semester-long course on this, so there's a lot of material. But I thought we'd talk today about a couple things that can be helpful when you are working across cultures. I think number one is recognizing that we are coming from different cultures, and that shifts the way we see things. And it can be very, very helpful to create an awareness in your environment that we all have different windows on a situation. I'm looking at the Waisilis here, and we've been talking about that. And I want to give you 2 fun tools to consider. and this I want to talk to you a bit about being a tour guide. One of the things that we've all now all been to a different culture, and it's very helpful to have someone who is your tour guide, someone who, I'm going to put my face back up there, someone who is used to that culture and can help you to navigate it. So when you're thinking about leading across cultures, think about what are the cultures I am accustomed to living within, and how can I help others navigate them? So here at the University of Montana, for example, the team has been being the tour guides on how the culture in the US works, how the culture, especially in Montana and at the University of Montana, works, and they've been the tour guides. And so when we can make it transparent, what are some of the things that we should never do in our culture? What are some of the things that you always want to do? So if I came into your homes, I'm looking at my friends here, what would I do with my shoes when I came to your house? Walk into the house with my shoes on, or take them off? Okay, so just about everyone here says take them off. So they're being my tour guide. What we've also learned is in Montana we have a lot of mud, right? And especially this time of year. So often in this culture as well, you would take your shoes off. But our jobs when we are leading across cultures is to think about how this world works that we're trying to navigate. Meanwhile, I'm going to go back to my slides. I want to show you something. Okay, let's see if I can do this. I want to show you. It's not always easy to remember that we are in a different culture. Often we are like fish swimming in water, right? So you would think, well, no, of course you would. I'm thinking of my friends who are from Thailand, and I've been to Thailand, but I haven't been to everyone's countries yet. But I think in Thailand is when I meet an elder, I'm going to bow in a particular way. If you have been raised in Thailand, you might not even think about how that bowing works, but you're sure going to notice when I don't do it correctly, right? So if we can think of ourselves as though we're swimming in our own water, and how do we, through self-awareness, start to pay attention to what is this water I'm swimming in within the Montana culture, for example. Another way to think about it is that when we are born, we're each given a set of sunglasses that have a different color on them. Does that make sense? So, you have the Montana colored sunglasses, or the Washington, D.C. colored sunglasses, or the Cambodian sunglasses. And to recognize we always are wearing these sunglasses. And how do we start to understand what the color of the lens is of the other people? I'm often surprised that I will think, oh, everyone knows this. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, not everyone knows this. I wanted to give you two frameworks from the Bennett family. Milton Bennett and his wife, also, they're very immersed in what they call intercultural sensitivity. And this can be helpful when you're thinking of leading across cultures. We want to try to become as interculturally sensitive as we can. And there are 6 levels that we go through. And what I notice is I can jump around in these as well. So to be kind to yourself. Sometimes we'll come in and we'll think, oh, we're all here at University of Montana, we're all the same, right? Forgetting that we're all wearing different colored sunglasses. And even within a country, I may have a whole different lens that I'm wearing because of my upbringing, or how long I've lived here, or, right? So recognizing we have to move from denial and start to recognize there might be differences. And how do we ask questions about those differences, right? What are you seeing that I might not be seeing? I was asking this group before we started, I wanted to hear what surprised them, because it helps me to learn about my own culture, things that I wouldn't necessarily even notice. Sometimes what will happen is we'll find differences and we'll think, oh, I want everybody to be the same as me. I can't believe they think like that. Oh, look, that person eats with their hands. That's wrong. They shouldn't do that, right? I'm usually in a defense mode, recognizing that, that there are differences, but I haven't accepted that there's many ways to do something. In the United States, we say there's many ways to skin a cat. Right? Which is strange just in itself. From the Islamic tradition, the poet Rumi says there are many ways to kneel and kiss the ground. And how do we think about all the different ways that people are living that work just fine, but they're different? Then we might minimize the differences and not recognize just how amazingly different our experiences might have been. And we want to then recognize, how do I learn more about my own culture and my own sunglasses so that I can start to have more of an acceptance? And I want to do an exercise here with you about this: describe, interpret, and evaluate. I want to do something fun. Then I'll start to adapt and I'll say, oh, okay, I know how to maneuver within. And those of us who may have come to a completely new culture and have lived our lives there, will actually learn to integrate it. What I find, as I said, is I'll bounce around, and not to feel bad if I find myself in denial and go, oh, I just missed something. As we've been talking about, leadership is so much about self-awareness, and saying, oh, I missed that. This is we're having a very different experience here. We're seeing this world in a very different way. So you all are going to help me do this exercise together. So I want you to tell me, when we think about how we see things, what do you see? So tell me what you're seeing. And it's coming slowly here as it catches up. You're going to see a picture here. We have a little bit of a lag, so we're hoping that it's going to show up. There we go. Okay. So what do you I loved everyone was looking at me and saying, I don't see anything. Very different. Okay, so what do you see? And just shout out to me what you see. A woman. Okay. Okay. A sad woman. Okay. With dots. Okay, you see dots. This is good. What else? Hair, veil. You see a veil. What else do you see?
Full makeup.
Full makeup. Okay. What else would you say?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay. What's that?
I'm happy.
Happy.
You think, okay, so you see happy.
Yeah.
Someone else said sad. I love it. Okay. What else do you see?
She's looking for someone.
Okay, looking for someone.
I think she's very.
Waiting.
She's waiting. Okay, I'm writing all these down. Feels like she's at a funeral. Beautiful. This is great. What else? What else do you see? Anything
I think
else?
she is in a room, in a dark room.
In a dark
Because,
room.
yeah, not very bright.
Okay. What else if you?
She's a model.
A model.
She could be a transgender.
Could be transgender.
So these are
Okay.
some from the chat. Some other people from the chat see a widow,
A widow.
maybe somebody looking through a window,
Okay.
bright red lipstick,
Lipstick. This is great.
beautiful
Okay.
sad woman.
Okay.
Wow.
Beautiful and sad. So the same thing that you all were saying. Okay. I'm looking. Okay. This is fantastic.
Portrait photo.
It looks like a portrait photo. I found it on her Facebook page. No. Okay. So notice all of the things that we might see. What can be very helpful is to recognize that there is a model, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second so that people can see my face, that we had different interpretations, different descriptions, and different evaluations of this picture, right? So some of the things that we saw were the description. We saw a person, woman. We saw lipstick, hair, right? Veil. Some of it was interpretation, happy, sad, beautiful, right? Transgender, woman, right? And then you see evaluation too. So we might say she's alone, or we might put a good or a bad on it too, right? She's in a dark room. We might be an interpretation or an evaluation. It can be very helpful, and that's an evaluative statement instead of a descriptive statement. Notice the difference. To recognize when I'm looking at something, am I describing it? Am I interpreting it, or am I evaluating it? And each of these help for me to understand what my sunglasses are like. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do it again, and we're going to practice with another one. Okay, ready? We're going to bring my, okay, I shouldn't say anything. Whoa, that was bad. That was not what I should have done. Try it again.
And there's about a 15-second lag.
That's helpful. Thank you. Thank you for counting that out for me. So we're having a 15-second lag here. So as we said, so a great framework when you're moving through intercultural sensitivity is this, is to notice, am I saying, is it a description, what I see, only observe facts? Am I what I think, interpretation about what I see, and evaluation, what I feel, what I'm thinking about this. Do I feel positive or negative about it? Very helpful. And that's, there we go, that's caught up. So ready to do it again?
Yeah.
All right. First, I'd like you to do description. What do you see of this picture? Let's see if we can do description. A photo. Nice. What else? It looks like a guy. Okay. Yeah, that's almost right. Looks like a guy. Yeah. Yeah. You can't.
This has a
Well,
question.
it's
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Oh. Oh, we're having fun because with this 15-second lag, I was like, lipstick. Where is his lipstick? Okay. So what do you see? Glasses. So we're doing description first. Glasses. What else? A nose. Man. Probably man. Yeah. Glasses. Eyes.
No.
You've got a circle there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We could do the others. A color, maybe you see kind of copper color, but even that's kind of interpretive, isn't it? So interpretation, what are you thinking about what you see? Let's practice with that.
And Deidre, I should say some of the ones from the live chat from other
Please.
people. Shock expression.
Shock expression.
A man in space head wrap.
Man,
And cosmonaut in 1970s.
oh, so cosmonaut in 1970, so very interpretive there, right? So how would you interpret what you're seeing? Yeah, I've stumped everyone here. He's making a joke. Yes.
I think he might doing some like funny thing for the kids.
Yeah, doing something funny for kids. So there's a little bit of evaluating in there too, right? Is he doing something you're liking it? You're thinking he's doing something funny for kids.
Frightened.
He could be frightened. Yep, you're interpreting it as he's frightened. Yeah.
It can be a torture. Tortured by someone.
Yeah, it looks like he's being tortured. Could be. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And would you evaluate it as positive or negative? You were thinking positive,
Yeah.
as because it's like he's doing something fun for kids, but I'm also hearing negative because he could be being tortured. So this is my husband being very silly. He's being very, very, very silly. We were on our way to Washington State, and we went to a where they had created a dam. They created a dam, and this was a diving bell to go down, and you could put your face in it to feel what that felt like to build the dam. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But notice all of the things that we thought it might be, right? And how for some of us it looked scary and awful, and for others of us we thought it was funny and delightful. Yes, this is my funny husband. So he had a very fun time with this. So when we are working with people from different cultures, if we can be transparent about what we're seeing, how we're interpreting things, and how we're evaluating, we can have powerful conversations. And so I pass along those two models to you. But there is a whole lot more, and I can send those of you who are interested more resources on how to move and navigate across cultures. My number one thing I want you to take away, though, is how to help people to recognize in this room, we have hundreds of cultures. We may think, oh, we just have Cambodia, Myanmar, right? Thailand, we can do it that way. But we have Missoula and Bozeman, and some of us are mothers, and some of us are fathers, and some, did you see? And some of us grew up in conditions where it was really difficult, or some of us have come out of situations of conflict. And so we have hundreds of cultures in this room, and how do we remember that and make them transparent? All right, so going on to great leadership, and we've been having conversations in this room about just this. I'm going to let the chart appear so that you can see what it looks like as well. But we had a question around, is it different to lead in a private corporate environment versus a nonprofit or an NGO? And you will laugh as I'm speaking. My husband is still up on the screen, so we're watching him just a little bit longer, but now he's gone. So is it different to lead in a private nonprofit and private versus a nonprofit? And what I wanted to talk about was how we care for our resources and how we use leadership styles, because we had talked about that earlier, and what is our role. So I'm going to go back so you can see my face again for a minute. My experience of working with both nonprofit and corporate leaders is that great leadership is essentially the same. One of the things that we kind of can take advantage of when we're in a corporate environment and we're paying people well is sometimes I have noticed people get a little bit lazy about how to care for both the hearts and the heads of the people they work with. I have noticed that successful NGO leaders are very aware that so often they have to ask people to do work for no money, and sometimes at great risk. And those who keep their people with them well and care for that resource with great kindness and acknowledgement, they seem to do the best. I was just meeting earlier this week with an NGO leader down in my town, and she runs a community mediation center, pretty much all volunteer. And we were talking about that you always need to pay your volunteers. You always need to pay your volunteers. And so what we said was, so often we think that we don't, but we need to pay them in something. It might be in training, or an acknowledgement, or an appreciation and gratitude, right? Or it may be something financial. But if we can always think that no matter wherever we're leading and we're asking others to come to our side and support us, is we need to pay them. and to think about how am I doing on compensating, which is kind of switches the gears a little bit. So I pass that along to you. Another key component of great leadership, and especially when we are dealing with situations where we don't have a lot of resources, is to use all 6 leadership styles, which will show up here in just a moment. But what I have a little chart, which you are eventually going to see as you see me look, is lasting leadership for me, working with great leaders here now for almost 30 years, is they model the way. They set the example. And we were talking about this earlier, is how do we walk the talk that we want others to do by showing it ourselves? To learn more about this, I really call you to the practice of ethical leadership, thinking about how do you embody the values that you want to see in your employees and your volunteers. Servant leadership, which we were talking about over lunch here. How do we come back to our job is just to help and to put ourselves behind in many ways and stepping forward when it makes sense. Situational leadership, and I give you each of these as different disciplines so that you can go back if you say, I want to learn more about this. Situational leaderships, and I want to talk to you about this idea of leadership styles. So you are there to model what the best might look like. And best also can be when you make a mistake, is celebrating that you've made a mistake and calling people to accept and be compassionate with themselves so that they can get back up again. So it doesn't always mean that you're perfect, but it's modeling continuous learning, modeling ethical leadership, modeling what it means to be a servant and to serve the whole, and modeling being adaptive. We're also called in lasting leadership to be inspirational. And so I send you to the field of motivational leadership and also storytelling. I'm really excited to see how much storytelling is becoming a discipline in leadership. I love stories, so it's really fun and something that we can continue to research, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. So you have, if you've spent time on the Leading Change module, you are probably tired of hearing your friend Deidre say, leadership is a combination of head and heart, right? Yeah. Head and heart, task and relationship. And a way to think about how you embody that and work with your teams is to employ all 6 leadership styles. And we were having a great conversation here that we want to pass along to you about how when we're only thinking about the head and only thinking about getting things done, you can hear me clapping my hands like get it done now, that is the commanding leadership style. So you can see that way over on task, we have the commanding leadership style. It's a good style, but we need it when we are in crisis. You've got a quick deadline, or as I was saying to everyone here, that if there was a fire in the building and I started to go all relationship and ask everybody, how are you feeling? Are you doing okay? They would look at me like I was a crazy woman and say, you need to be yelling at us to get out of the room, right? So commanding is great in crisis. Affiliative, which is all about relationship, is all about saying, how are you? It's wonderful after a crisis. So it's checking in, making sure that everyone is okay. As we go in, and those styles have their place, but this work is from Daniel Goleman. He wrote a book called Primal Leadership, so I pass that along to you as well. What we found is that the styles that are more closely close to the mandorla, something you're also very accustomed to hearing me talk about, where it is both head and heart, task and relationship, are the styles that seem to work best. So we want to make sure that there's time when we're asking everyone else what they think. Democratic, There are also times when we want to push people and say, come on, we can do this at a whole higher level. That's called pace setting. I set a pace or a goal and I say, come on, everyone, we can do this. And I take you there. But the styles that seem to really call people the most and they want to see the most is coaching, when you're helping me to become better. Does that make sense? Yeah. And also visionary. So that when we use the democratic style and as a team we come up with a vision, and then I hold that vision and call us to our best, that is one of the most positively viewed styles. Does that make sense? So when we were, I'm going to put myself back on again. When we were talking about this earlier, it became very clear as we were having a conversation of what makes great leadership in this room, was that we recognized that if we spend too much time on the head side of things, on the task side of things, nobody wants to work with us. If we spend too much time on the heart side of things, we don't get anything done and we have no organization, or we fail on our project. Our videos don't get done. Our amazing professional videos that I cannot wait to see when we get to Congress. and nor can you guys, right? Everybody's excited to see these videos. So, but this gives you the opportunity to practice. It gives you, doesn't it? It gives you an opportunity to practice all of these different leadership styles and to notice. Right now, we really need to remember what our overall vision is and to come back to it. Or someone wants to learn more about how to film or how to do transcription, and that's an opportunity. I'm assuming that each of the groups used more of a democratic style at first to figure out what they wanted to be in the video, right? I'm seeing lots of nods in this room. So,
overcome the conflict.
and then how to use conflict resolution, and go to that module in the leading change course, right? There you go. So I'm going to go back to give you some more charts here as we go. But as you can tell, it's this concept of situational leadership is critical. There may be times when we really need to be very, very bossy. And there may be times, right, when we really shouldn't be very, very bossy. So watching that as well. You're eventually going to see another slide here, my friends in this room, but I want to talk to you about leaders as storytellers, and to think of yourselves not only as someone who's modeling the best, and not only as someone is reminding people of their ethics and holding a vision, but that your job is to tell the story. You all will be giving pitches when you go to Congress in Washington, D.C. You will give pitches to each other. This is a practice in telling your story. Great leaders that I have worked with know how to tell a great story. And what you want to be doing and paying attention to is, what are the successes that I can share for my team? And it's often, research shows that humans need symbols to go with it. So you may be telling a story of success, and you may bring, so our friends who are working with women who are creating handicrafts, is to bring those handicrafts into the room, and we get to see what they look like, or see pictures of the children that are in your classroom. So images, and it can be really helpful. And you can think about that with your pitch. There may be some small thing that you want to pass around when you pitch. But thinking, whenever I'm telling the story, how do I get people to deepen into what it is? Research shows that we always want to be celebrating our team, encouraging the heart. But there's something about brain science that tells us when we're telling a story is to only celebrate the success after it's happened. So otherwise your team gets less motivated. So you always want to be cheering your team on, but watch yourself in terms of don't celebrate too soon, but always celebrate. Our vision is a story. So we think of the very famous I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King Jr., right?
Mhm.
And we're all still trying to live into that story, so that this is part of your job for every one of us is what's the story we want to tell right now? What's the story we want to tell about the environment in these times? What's possible? I want your dream. I desperately need your dream so that I can live into it. What's the story about women in your community? What is the story about LGBT rights in our world today? So I want you to be telling that story. What is your dream? Because that changes everything. We also, there's a big question about what is great leadership and how do you get women to work together? And I will tell you, I have worked with a number of all women organizations. And you're going to be seeing this chart. So I've got, it says empowering others, including women on a team. And what I found, I've worked with a number of all women organizations on 2 different medical practices. And it can be really interesting. Often in our culture, in the US culture, women are very relationship oriented. And I have found if there is no vision that they're working towards, we run into a lot of conflict. Does anyone else run into that? I've got some nods in this room. So I say that when we are working, you're going to see this, this chart here soon, but it says share what is possible and to co-create a new vision. So when you find that you have a team that doesn't really want to work together, or you're finding they're doing a lot of gossiping or infighting or trying to create, there you go, trying to create, you know, a hierarchy, is how do you bring vision into it? And I've noticed that that has a big switch. So, and to watch on how you can use the democratic leadership style to create a vision, and then watch for what the limiting beliefs are. It's like, oh, we can never get along. How do you shift from we can never get along to we know how to bond together and to work well together and to empower each other. So this is where your storytelling capabilities come into play. If you act as though it is true that this is, as an all-woman team, is one of the strongest teams you've ever been on, how would you model that that's already true? So how do you live the story every day? And I have found with great leaders who are running, especially all-women organizations, that shifts things, where they say, we are modeling what it looks like to bring a balanced workplace into this community. We are modeling what it is for women to empower other women. You remember that I asked you one of the first articles that I always ask people to read, which is about being a leader as a host and not a hero. It's great. It's a great article, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shifts everything, but especially working with women, I have found that that is a great way to hold the space and to call everyone to their best. So you will have a lag here again. I wanted to tell you a story about a women's organization that has been very successful in Costa Rica, and it's called Nosotras, which means us, but us as women, and it's called Women Connecting. And this organization was started with she felt, this woman, Marisela Zamora, felt like it was a very small vision. She said, I wanted to help women be empowered by other women and to connect women. And this is all women. She was very clear, whether you were born in a body that would be designated as a woman or not, all women. So she's very clear about that and bringing women from all over Costa Rica. And she said, I just want to start with something simple. I want women who have expertise to come in and empower and provide information to young women entrepreneurs. And Marisela started with this story, and she started to tell the story, and she told the story to eventually the vice president of the country, and ended up putting on an event. This is the event. in Costa Rica last March, where it was a 2-day incubator entrepreneurs, and then she had 1,000 women and some men that were invited to this event in one of the historic theaters in San Jose. And so she started with something small, and it became something huge. She got to the end of the day, and the vice president smiled at her and said, "Okay, well, next year." And off she goes into 2018. And so she's holding this vision and then allowing the vision to be fed by the community. So I send you, and you'll see I've given you the link to their website. This is an example, and this is just work like you are doing. And she was a community solutions fellow, so also a fellow just like you, and allow this to grow and continues to let it grow. And she just is hosting it and allowing the community to feed it. So I give you that as an example. Okay, working with difficult employees. Again, I can teach this for many, many months, but I wanted just to give you a couple ideas as you're working on your videos. No, just kidding. So dealing with difficult employees. I want to refer you to some different resources on this. But one of the things, and it's slowly coming, I think, is to ask for multiple windows. And as we were saying here, we were talking about how we recenter ourselves when leadership is difficult. And one of the things that I will tell myself is when someone is saying something I absolutely, completely disagree with, if they have a radical position, someone was asking a question about what do I do if someone has such a radical position, I just don't even want to hear it. What do I do? And one of the things that I can do so that I can listen is just to say, it's just another window. So if we think about different cultures and different places that people are coming from, is that we're all potentially looking out a different window on the world. And how can I just say, what if I listen to that person? One of our friends here at University of Montana, she was saying to us the way she recenters is that she says, what if that person knows something that I don't know? And it may make all the difference. So that would be a tip. But what we have to do is figure out how do we get ourselves listening again. You've heard on the Leading Change module to be thankful for the problem. As hard as that is, even if you don't believe it, just pretend it's true. I refer you to The Way of Conflict, and some of you have gotten that book, but I posted a couple of the chapters on the Leading Change module. But while you're here, there are used copies for just a couple dollars on Amazon if you want to grab one. But to understand the 4 stages of change, so recognizing, and I talk a little bit about this in Leading Change, but the Leading Change course is that where am I in the problem? You know, have we tried everything we could try? Or are there questions I still could ask? Are we in a place where I need to stop holding too tightly to a particular solution and being open to new options? Or are there a lot of options and I need to practice listening? A number of you in this room were saying how listening is such a key skill to stay centered. Or is it time to try something? If you think that there's only 2 answers, the person gets to stay in your organization if he's difficult, or you get to fire him, I will tell you that you haven't been creative enough. If you don't have at least 10 possible crazy options, you aren't engaged in working in this challenge. So that's something to watch. If you find yourself, it's like it's either this, or if someone tells you it's either this or this, promise me that you'll recognize you're at the beginning of the conflict. You're at the beginning of the conflict. Something else we were talking about earlier, and I want to refer back to, is sometimes difficult employees are parts of ourselves that we don't like. So some of our work can be is to be a little kinder to ourselves and to fall a little bit more in love with the lazy part of ourselves. Or the part of ourselves that gets frustrated, or the part of ourselves that might yell. And I'm not saying that then you put up with that particular behavior, but what it does is it makes it so that you're not you don't have so much energy around that particular person's issues, so that you're not being held hostage by the behavior. So you might say, oh, that person's so rude. I can't handle that person. I want them to go away. I want them to stop, right? But if we fall kind of in love with, oh, you know what? Sometimes I can be rude. Sometimes I can say the wrong thing. We are much then more able to deal in a mature way with the difficult behavior. To learn more about that, I've written a chapter in Worst Enemy, Best Teacher. And again, if you go to Amazon, there are used copies. That's the great thing about books when they've been around a while, for just a few dollars. So I suggest that if you want to learn more. But the key is just to go, oh, I just want that person to stop. That often tells us that I've got some personal work to do. Again, leadership is so much about self-awareness and learning how to work with our own things that we struggle with. Okay, we are cruising along. I wanted to give you a couple more. Get through all of these wonderful questions. And then I want to hear questions from all of you. Okay. So social entrepreneurship is the next one, which you all will see here shortly. And someone was asking, they said, I have been working on a big social entrepreneur project for 3 years and I haven't made a bit of money. Someone told me it's just a hobby, right? And you know, I think they were starting to get discouraged. And I'm sure there's some of us in this room who know that feeling, right? Where you're like, I'm giving my heart and soul to this and nothing's happening. The beauty of social entrepreneurship is it's not about the money. It's great if you can keep it funded because it's self-sustaining, but really, if it's successful, you are helping to create the social progress that you want to create. You'll find, I think it's in the post-fellowship module, you'll have to remind me, I think it's in the post-fellowship is about social entrepreneurship. But social entrepreneurs, what I love is the social part is that's your job, is to try to make the community better and that you're using entrepreneurial strategies to do it. Right? And so to be kind to yourselves if it's not making money, but if it's still moving forward. Someone was asking if there is resources around social entrepreneurship and inclusive education, or using social entrepreneurship to bring up new and exciting educational approaches. I wanted to turn you on to 3 examples that I've been exposed to. Nuestra Escuela in Puerto Rico is getting kids that they're getting them off the streets. They call them the throwaway kids, and they're bringing them back in. They have a vision of these kids being able to get through high school, maybe go to college, and their code of conduct is love. They say everyone should be hugged at least once a day. And it changes everything. They have a sister school, the Shul Yetu in Kenya, that they're working with, and another community solutions fellow is Kayusa, is founded Kayusa in Uganda. Something, if you all are into looking at different, I know some of you in this room are doing education. There's a really interesting movement called Democratic Education Movement, which you may be aware of, and they do a big international conference every year. So some exciting things happening in social entrepreneurship and education, and hopefully I'm answering the question that was posted as well. Someone asked about how to survive being an entrepreneur in a startup and staying sane and not getting burnt out. And just how do we stay strong? I don't know if anyone in this room, and I know we have some on this call, that what you run into is, if I'm on and I'm up and I'm motivated and I'm telling the story, everybody comes with me. But if I'm exhausted, nothing happens, right? So I'm getting a lot of nods here, where you feel like you're pulling the entire organization along with you, because it's like the vision's only in you and not in everybody, right? So thinking of all of you and wanting you to be strong and to pull this off over the long term, strategic planning and the discipline of strategic planning is one of your key activities. And what I really want you to do more than anything is to get a vision that can live in every single person, so that you get a break and that you're not the only one that's carrying that vision forward. And so how do you ground not only yourself in the vision, but everyone else? And so I really recommend doing visioning exercises. I can send those to all of you as well. There's some great work out of the University of Kansas, and they have a toolbox for leadership, and one of the things that they have is a set of visioning exercises. So I will remind myself as I see this to send that to all of you. Maybe Kelsey, you can remind me that's one of the resources, because it really helps so that you can have an off day, or you can go on a professional fellowship or a community solutions 4-month fellowship, and it works. And so how to do that, and then your own self-care through a number of things one is to go back to the vision and say, am I just making one small step today? As I really love Miles Horton, who was one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s friends, taught Rosa Parks leadership. And he would say that if your vision can be accomplished in your lifetime, it's too small. If your vision can be accomplished in your lifetime, it's just too small. So recognizing that if we hold this vision and just say to ourselves, what's one small thing I can do? Today, for me, for my vision is to sit here with you, right? I get to pass along just a little bit, and who knows what will happen. And I can rest in that, and I can be done at the end of the day. Time management saves you. So go back to that time management and how to take good care of you. A friend of mine calls it the air mask strategy, right? So I'll put you see me again. It's that idea when you're on the airplane, when we were all on the airplanes coming over here, they said, put your own air mask on first. So how do we always use the air mask philosophy? Making sure that each day you're getting the exercise you need and the sleep that you need and the joy that you need, how you're going to keep that internal bucket inside of you full. We don't do anyone any good when we're burned out. And I don't know about all of you, but I often don't realize I'm burned out until I'm burned out, right? So what are the small practices that we can do each and every day to take good care of ourselves? But what I want you to do is infect. It's like contagious disease. I want you to infect everyone with your vision, because then when you take the break, then other people can show up and it doesn't have to be just you. And that's back to that hero and host. Remember, because it's easy to be a hero. I find myself in the hero mode much more than I ever want to admit to all of you, because I'm like, I can fix this, I'll do this. And then I realize if I'm feeling alone, right? Remember this? If I feel alone and I'm exhausted, I was just being a hero. So how do we come back again and to learn in public and say, oh, I was being a hero. We need to stop, right? Okay, let's see. How are we doing? I think we're just about through these. I don't have good answers for this. How do you work with government and civil society? But I know in this room, there's some expertise. And I know when you are at Congress, I'm really hoping that you network well with other people who are doing, you are a team of experts. I have met now, you are my 5th, I think, group that I have gotten to meet. And very impressed. This is the caliber. You are in very good company. So there are a lot of people who know things that I don't know that I need to make sure that I ask. Like I said, please join the Leading Well Network. There are great experts in that as well. And again, that's just free and a way that we keep helping each other. And it's a way to help. I also say when you have questions about government and civil society and working with different political groups, ask your grantee organizations. I am also extremely impressed with the caliber of the people that you're working with. And if as you meet some of the other grantee organization representatives, ask them. So if you may be with ACYPL, for example, ask someone from the University of Montana or the University of Oklahoma or American Councils or World Chicago. It's an extraordinary group. I also want to and continue to encourage everyone that if it does make sense for you to consider joining the Community Solutions Program over the next decade, hopefully. We would absolutely love to have you to dive more deeply into this issue of transparency and effective government. I'm getting to the end, which is good because I want to make sure I get time for questions, and Kelsey's going to tell me if we have questions online, and I know we've got some questions in the room. Some folks were having trouble with the Prezi. I don't know if anyone, downloading the app can be hard for some. I'm hoping everyone is finding that there's a PDF as well that you can just click on. If you have problems, and I'm saying this to everyone, just email me and we can make sure. The final assessment, and I think is anyone in this room finished? I think, has anyone done it? Not yet. Okay. You guys have been very busy, but some of our colleagues have already completed it. It's some work. So I want to encourage you to take notes as you go through. The way that the exam works is you can stop it at any time and go back and check your answers. Okay. I will tell you that if you see all of the above on one of your multiple choice questions, read them very carefully. Because often your teacher, Deidre, is trying to make sure that you learned all of the different components. So there are a couple of them that are going to be all of the above. But that's my little shh, don't tell anyone as I tell all of you. But a good thing to look at, because what I'm also, all we really want is that you learn the material. So this is not trying to trick anyone not to pass. We just want you to learn the material. You only get 3 tries, so do make sure you're checking carefully. So, but you can fail 2 other times and it's still okay. And you will get an official certificate that has the State Department logo on it. You will download it, and you can do that here or when you're back home. All right, so I think that's all the everything that I had. So I would love to hear some questions you had.
Yeah, we can start with one from the chat. So this person says, what characteristics of leadership do you think are more important? Because this person says, in order to be a leader in South America, where it's very difficult to plan long-term and there's lack of resources, important in that
What's
situation.
most important? Yeah. You're bringing up a great point, because not only what I think we're all finding is change is so rapid now, right? It used to be, I started my career at IBM. Can you think of a place that's more staid and solid and everything moved at a slow pace? That world is gone, you know? So the whole study and area of adaptive leadership can be very, very helpful. So I would say that probably the number one thing that I would say is the most important is to be comfortable with change and comfortable with conflict. And what are the skills that I can use to be ready for things to change at any time? And so how do I strengthen that muscle? How do I strengthen that muscle? One of the things that I have done that's really helped me is to focus a lot on how systems work. And we talked a little bit about this in the Leading Change course, but I really want to encourage people to think about seeing a group as a living, breathing being. So instead of, if someone in your group is frustrated and complaining, thinking, oh, I want to get rid of that person because then everything goes away, instead thinking, this is potentially the voice of the being. Does that make sense? This is the voice of the being. So how can I listen to it and then listen to the other voices so that it's almost like it's a beast that has multiple mouths and multiple voices. To all those so that I can be adaptive and evolve well as a leader, because what others are seeing can be critical to my success. Kind of a theme that we've had here today. And again, being comfortable with conflict is key. So if we see conflict as an opportunity, whether we want to or not, that can really help as well. So I would say the answer that. Great. Other questions? What's come up for you as we've been talking here, or I've been talking here for a long time? Or comments or things we should talk about more? Yes, marvelous.
I want to know more about the storytelling leadership, because when I heard the word, I just remember some of the leader just telling the story and didn't make anything. And so, how can we clarify about the storytelling leadership? It means that the thing that he or she wants to make it, she telling like a story, or fulfilling it step by step, or what kinds of things?
Yeah. It's great. So, and again, I can send you an article. I'm going to write this down, send this out to everyone. Great stories have conflict to them, right? So it's, and great stories have a hook at the beginning, right? And great stories have a resolution or a possibility that's coming. So it's to think about what makes a really good story, and then thinking about that, how do I then craft telling the story of this organization or of myself? In community solutions, for example, and this, if I had more time with you, I would ask each of you to do this for me, because I ask you to write at least a page to 2 pages about your story. It's like, why are you here? Like, what is the work? Why is this the work that you need to do? And maybe even just to need to do right now. So I give you that as a homework assignment for everyone, is write your story. What made you, what brought you to here? What are the influences? What's the conflict that you are trying to resolve with your life? Yeah, does that help? But I will send you, what I want to do is send you an article. Okay, good. I want to send you a fun article by someone who, I think he's the director of Toy Story and all these different movies, right? And so it's like, how do you tell a good story? But you can translate that story to get support and funding. You all probably told a good story about your own lives to get on this program. But it's a helpful thing to be able to do, but then also for your organization. Is that, yeah? Okay. Good hook. It's okay to have conflict. Okay.
So we'll do one from the live chat and then we'll come back. This person asks, how can you be a leader if you don't have resources?
So I want you to write them back and say, is it just money are we talking about?
Right.
Yeah. So one of the things I've noticed with leaders that things seem completely impossible is that they have a very broad perspective on resources. So they shift the thought around resources. When you did the piece around fundraising, I think I have a module for you on fundraising, is to think about, so often we think, oh, is he rich? Is he not rich? Is she rich? Is she not rich, right? And then do I want to talk to him or not want to talk to him? Shifting the paradigm to, I want to tell my story about what's possible, and then watching what help might arise. I watched an extraordinary woman named Genevieve Walsh, and she wanted to help girls in rural Pakistan have access to education. And she had nothing to start, but she had she had been working in these communities, and for $125, a girl could go to school for a year. And so she just started telling that story, and started listening to what the communities needed. And so what she found was there was all sorts of resource in the community, in these communities where there is not a penny, because everything's done on a barter system, and people were living often below the poverty line, but there were all sorts of other resources. So it's a whole lot easier if someone gives you $1 million, right? In some ways. But how can we shift and think people can help in all sorts of ways? We were talking earlier about strengths-based leadership, and recognizing if we just listen, there might be wonderful opportunities or possibilities. Like I was telling you about Maricela Zamora. The vice president of the country has no budget. It's really interesting. In Costa Rica, there is no budget. She said, I can't give you a penny, but I can give you credibility and I can give you context. And, right? So is to watch. I mean, for someone like me, I am on the professional fellows team. I'm on everyone's team who's watching this and who's in this room. There may be ways that I can help that we might not be able to envision yet. And that's what I've noticed with such great leaders, is that they are really open to that. So one way to think of it is, instead of fundraising, is friend raising. And watching, right? Yeah. And that's a term that you'll hear used in the US. Sometimes it's, I'm going to make you my friend so you'll give me money later. But it also can just be, how do I get allies and supporters? And a really interesting place where there can be resources you might not know is when you have a clear vision in your organization. You have a clear vision and you find out that someone else shares your vision. So I'm thinking of, in this room, there are people who have similar visions. Could be some interesting resource sharing. So that's great. Yeah.
Lisa, did you? Yes. I just interested in the working and dealing with difficult employees, or colleagues or friends.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe have more ideas or tools to learn more about it.
Okay.
Yeah. What's the best way, or how we can support them or help them? Sometimes we just let it go, but or they don't know themselves. How can we help them, support them to get into the point? Exactly.
So we go back to the 6 leadership styles. There's lots of strategies, and I just want to also remember that it's hard. There's nothing more frustrating than having an employee who doesn't do their work, right? Or someone that is, causing problems or bullying people in the organization. It's hard. It's really hard. So it's not like this is easy. But some of the strategies are you employing the 6 leadership styles. Sometimes people aren't coachable, and you might recognize that one of the kindest things that you may do for them is to help them to move to another organization. So there's not so often people will say, well, what should I do? And usually I know this of what you know this, right? And so it's looking within, kind of going back to your vision, going back to the code of conduct, of your own personal code of conduct and that of the organization. So if respect is something that you as an organization have agreed to, and someone's doing something that can be perceived as disrespectful, is to be able to set a healthy boundary around this is, might not be your intent, but your impact is people are feeling disrespected. So feedback is helpful. Coaching, if they're coachable, is helpful. Sometimes people just haven't had the experience of what does professional behavior look like. I'm fascinated working with some of you, or working with students where they just don't know that it's important to show up on time, or to dress in a way that bellays respect to your clients. So sometimes it's teaching. So you see, it's the different styles, right? Sometimes it's reaching out and treating someone with, with your heart. Sometimes it's getting clear around the vision and reminding them the vision. Sometimes it's coaching. And then sometimes it is, we are setting some very clear boundaries. This is not okay. Yeah.
Because the culture is more indirect way communication. That's why it's quite difficult. We cannot just say like.
Right. Then we have the cultural overlay, right?
You only have to read the mind.
Yeah, exactly. So there's leading across cultures. You're bringing up, thank you for bringing that up, is that we have low context cultures and high context cultures. A culture like the United States is, we are more apt to talk and to share and to provide feedback in a way that would not be really well perceived in Southeast Asia, right? It's like, whoa, what is that? So how do we classes and figure out a way that, that the person can save face, but that they also learn, right? Yeah. And that's why I say, I've got this and you've got this, but I love, yeah. And so how do we embody ethical leadership in a high context culture? It's a challenge. Yeah, but thank you. That's a great, yeah.
So we're going to go back to one of the questions, and we'll come back to our group again. This person asks, how do you get your agenda on the table for discussion when you're a young leader in a group of senior or high level officials who are generally not receptive to younger people?
Yeah. I actually want to look at this room and poll you, because I bet you have some ideas about that, don't we? Yeah. Right. Does anyone have a burning thought about what has worked? Because it is challenging in terms of, you think about, we talked about dominant culture and age, right? It creates, goes Kelsey, creates that power imbalance. One of the things that I have noticed works very well is when we understand our culture well, we can use it to navigate so that they have to listen to us, right? And I'm getting nods here on that. So the tricks of, is it that you ask the elders what they think, and you find others who have similar viewpoints to you, and then you bring that forward by honoring your elder. A trick in some of the cultures of this room, right, is to
do our homework to get to know the others and know ourselves.
Yes, yeah. And so how do I work within a cultural context? I was very impressed with a young woman in Pakistan that I worked with. She was a university leader, and she was really upset about how this was a while ago, and there was no freedom of the press. The press had been squashed. But she wanted to find a way to start conversation. And she was amazing. She said, I'm just going to hold a peace march. I'm going to hold a peace march on my campus. And we're just going to walk from this end of campus to this end of campus. And it's only women, and we're not going to talk. Only women, and we're not going to talk. So she used what would be appropriate within her university, what would be appropriate within her culture, that no one could stop her. And they had this peace march, and was done in a way where she could not speak and call for peace in a way that really nobody else could. And within a month, within her community, there were other protests in nonviolent ways that brought the ability for the press to be more open. She worked within her culture, but not, again, this is not easy. This is subtle stuff. And I'm watching all of you think about what are the creative ways that we can make sure that our agendas move forward, and no one may never even know it's our agenda. And that we're bringing good forward. Okay, so who should, yes. Oh, yeah.
So I'm really glad to hear the saying that like if your vision can be like accomplished in your lifetime and it's too
small,
because like in my organization, then like the leaders are usually criticized for being too ambitious, and then like can be like imaginary and like be dreamers. Why we see that our employees, like their goals and their vision, is very narrow. So how to compromise that? And then like because like in our organization, like we have a very high turnover rate. So like when every time new people come in, then they will see like the goals, the objective, and then the vision of the organization very differently. So like what should we do? Like we employ people to like achieve the goal that we set already. We employ people and then empower them.
Yeah, I think you know the answer, don't you? So what would help to keep people around? What would make them stay? So what we're hearing is that we have a high turnover and that the vision is given to people and the goals are given to people. But you have a sense of what would make people want to stay?
I don't really know.
You don't really know. What makes you want to stay?
What makes me want to stay? Because if I think I'm valuable,
okay,
and then, like if I can achieve something, and if like I am like people value my contribution.
Love it. So if you're seen and you feel valued and your insights are valued, you want to stay. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing is that if you get to contribute to the vision and contribute to the goals, then you're going to want to stay there longer. Yeah.
So like every time you have new people, you have to communicate again and again.
Right. Yeah. Turnover is, all the research says, hold on to your employees. It's a whole lot cheaper and you get a whole lot more done. Do I connect to your head? I'm doing something that's exciting and invigorating for you. And how do I let you know that, and that I see your contributions and your strengths and your gifts and talents, and I stay. It's a whole, because you're spending a whole lot of time retraining and trying to pass along a vision that people aren't holding within them necessarily. Fair enough, yeah. So thank you. I think you knew it. I was like, you have the answer to that. That's great.
Yeah, I heard a lot of you say about the key to be successful as this leadership style.
Yes.
It's based on the self awareness and self learning.
Yeah.
I think it's the process of a long life learning a lot. And what I want to know from you, can you give us some recommendation for us as we are on the process of life and to learn? Because this is what is not easy. The term is very easy because we always know it, but how to be effective to self-awareness and learning about others too.
Yes.
So can you give any suggestion for us?
That's great. So so tools around self-awareness, right? And how do we do that? Because it sounds easy in a way. But what I find is that there's all these blind spots that I have that I don't know I have. When I was practicing to do the TED Talk that you watched me do, I practiced and practiced and practiced, and one of the best things I did was to ask for feedback, which is really scary, right? Yeah. You're like, oh no, they're gonna tell me it's terrible. I don't want to know, right? But I learned so many things, and I not only learned what could make my speech better, which was why I was asking, but I learned about myself. I didn't realize that when I'm nervous, I will take my rings and I roll them around my fingers. And they said, we knew when you were nervous because you started to do this.
Oh.
And I was like, I do what? I had no idea, right? And so self-awareness is like, oh, what are the things that I do when I'm nervous? So just so I watch to go, I'm starting to roll my rings. Oh, I must be nervous right now. What's making me nervous? Or I'll watch when I start to get really sad. You'll like this. I want chocolate. Because somehow I think it makes me feel better, right? And those are just silly things, but it helps me, like they're my little clues to go, oh, I'm struggling right now. What's going on? Because if I know, I'm going to be a whole lot better when I'm working with you. Right? So if I'm nervous and I'm distracted and I'm not centered, like we've been talking about centering here today, I'm not going to be as good with you. And that's, my goal is to be as good with you as I possibly can. But also to ask for feedback. And a real easy feedback model is to give, and you can do this with others, but also ask with others to do for you, is it's called the PIE model. So P-I-E. And so you ask them to tell you something positive first. And you share something positive when someone asks for feedback, because there's always something positive, right? Informative. What am I learning from you? Or what have you learned from me? Great feedback, right? Just to realize, oh, look what I'm teaching. Oh, and I've asked that, and people will say, well, you always make us feel welcome, right? So a blind spot. So we have beautiful blind spots as well that we don't even know are there. And then E is even better. So what could be even better? So they might say, when you started rolling your rings, I got distracted. So how to practice maybe holding my hands like this, or watching, just noticing. Does that make sense? So asking for feedback is a great self-awareness tool. And it's amazing how often we will hear about our golden shadow, the things that we are doing that are making the world better, and we don't even know they're there, right? Our golden shadow. Those are sometimes harder for us to hear than you said and too many times. Or so. I love to say so. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. One more thing.
I always use that word.
One more.
Presentation, I got feedback from my friend. They do a video record and give it to me to see myself. You use that word too much.
You use that word too much.
So we have time for 2 more questions.
Thank you. Okay.
Jesse?
I want to ask about leadership.
Yes.
For example, I'm a leader in my organization, but my team or my staff, they don't accept me.
So you're a formal leader, but you don't feel like they accept you as a leader.
Even though I'm serving, even though I'm helping them, but they like it broken to many groups, small groups, and the gossiping, and conflicting in the organization.
Yeah.
But on behalf of being a leader, and you view how can you solve the problem to make the team better?
So how to strengthen the team. So you want to think about motivational leadership and team building. Have you done strategic planning with the whole group? Have you asked them about what the vision of the organization should include?
Yeah. We also have a team meeting. Yeah, sometimes, and they also share the vision about our job. So
you share the vision.
Yeah, mostly we have different complete ideas.
Okay. Yeah. We want to, I think, I think what we were hearing here earlier was that we all want to be valued. We all want to be seen and valued, and our gifts and talents be appreciated and utilized, right? We find with motivational leadership, one of the things that we really desperately want is to be able to get better at things. There's some great work by a motivational leadership researcher that says we want, named Daniel Pink, and he talks about wanting to be better at things. We want to do mastery. We want to have as much freedom as we possibly can. We want autonomy. And we want to tap into a sense of purpose. So if you tell me what my vision is and you share it with me, I'm probably not going to be quite as into it as if you ask me, working here really be exciting for you? So this is back to that idea of how can you create a vision that's like a contagious disease that gets in everyone and that they are willing to work toward it. So that is one trick. And an important trick, because then it's like we were saying, it's not all you know, you're the leader, you have to decide, you have to hold the vision. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. So is to see how it's just to have conversations about what else should be in our vision. What other goals would make you excited? Even though you're paying them, then that's that challenge, right? Is to think, how do we get people engaged? Team building. There's all kinds of great team building exercises and activities, but some of it is to get to know one another's hearts. A great question is to ask if, as you create more trust, is what's something you're most proud of? Which is hard for people to share, right? Or what's a challenge you overcame? And the stories of bravery and courage that I've heard with that question are extraordinary. What was something that you've overcome that you're proud? And some, what else is just fun things is to say, what might we not know about you? What's something that you love? And it's amazing to hear the things that people are doing and caring about that. So you see, it's that, how do they know that you see their heart? At the same time, you have to make sure everything gets done. So that's but the whole area of motivational leadership might be a helpful area for you. I can give you some other resources on that, but Daniel Pink would be one. That's great. Do I have one more?
People?
Oh, yay.
I want to know about the leadership and NGO management.
Leadership and management. Yeah.
Okay. But management to focus on NGO management.
Okay.
Yes. And based on your experience, what is the best way or the best practice to create leadership skill in NGO management have effective and efficiency?
Okay. Yeah. So this whole question between leadership and management, right? Yes, which is head and heart too, isn't it? There's a lot of that, because the bottom line is, at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you stay on budget and that you get the products out that you said you were going to do, and that you take care of the clientele. So what you remember those 4 leadership areas that in that leadership assessment you took before you came? The management side is a lot of that very first thing, is thinking about, how do I use technology well? How do I integrate time management into my organization? How do we make sure that we know about budgeting and goal setting and project management? So I would say that all of that is, there are courses that you can take on those types of things, and they are, in a lot of ways, they're technical leadership versus adaptive leadership, right? And so that's something to think about. This is the other challenge, is we have the head and the heart, but we also have the leadership holding a vision, inspiring, modeling the best for people, being self-aware, making people say, oh, I'm so glad I get to work with you. And at the same time, making sure that your funders get the reports that they need, and all of that. So you can tell, for me, it helps me to separate those a little bit, to go, okay, how am I taking care of the tactical? So that's the tactical, and then leadership is kind of more the strategic. There's a book called The Book of Five Rings that is a martial arts book out of Japan. It's, I think, a few hundred years old, and it talks about having a near eye and a far eye. And how do we have both of those at the same time? And so what you're asking about is some of this near eye stuff, but we also have to have the far eye at the exact same time. So I would say I would learn more about project management, budgeting, management. Sometimes those feel like the boring things. So I want to leave all of you, I've got a minute left, with you don't have the chat. Again, leader is host, not hero. Can you tell that the management stuff for me is not nearly as fun? I started my career as a project manager, so I did that for many years. I know how to do it all. But I love the inspirational, heart, motivational leadership stuff. So often when I'm on a team, I will team with someone who makes sure that all those details are taken care of. So you'll notice today, I was so lucky, I got to and thinking, and what was Kelsey doing? She was taking care of me, making sure we stayed on time, and she monitored all the questions and made sure we got this room, and she's just made this happen today because of Kelsey. So it's very important to find good people on your team, especially when we're maybe not as strong or as interested in those things. So Kelsey, and let's give Kelsey a big round of applause. And we'll give Alex, who's out there in the cyber world, another big round of applause. Because this absolutely wouldn't have happened without him either. Another person who is taking care of all the tactical management and making sure this all happened. So I'm gonna show everyone you before I turn it off, and you can all wave. Should we all wave goodbye to our friends? And there we go. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And that's Mndodi. Mndodi is a Community Solutions Fellow from Tanzania. So thanks for joining us, Mndodi. All right. Thank you all. And I will see you in a few weeks. Bye.